Alum production started here at Peak in around about sort of mid 1600s, 1652 we believe. It had started in this area, sort of further north and inland, in the very early 1600s. So by the time the Peak Alum Works came online, a lot of the sort of trial and error stuff had actually already been done, and people were a little bit more knowledgeable about how to create the alum product. And this was, I mean, the impact it's had on the local landscape really can't be overestimated. It was the first large-scale chemical industry. This was the precursor of the ICI up at Teesside, of all the big chemical works that you've got. Even though now you come to this site and it's beautiful, there's lots of wildlife, it's a fantastic habitat, at the time it was a hive of industrial activity, and like I say, the impact on the landscape in terms of the quarrying of the shale. I mean, millions of tonnes of shale were removed from the coastline and have completely changed the profile of the coast forever. Well, the whole process began up at the shale quarries, where men and boys would, with picks and axes basically, quarry out millions of tonnes of this. This is Jurassic shale. These are some fossils from the Jurassic shale, which is very grey in colour. So our very own Jurassic Park, as it were, and it has a lot of marine fossils. It was laid down in a very deep, quite calm sea. So these are marine deposits. They'd pile this raw shale up into clamps, or heaps, which were up to 10 metres high. And then they would burn it. They'd set fire to the base of the clamp, they'd kind of seal it in with wet shale, and they'd burn it for up to about a year. And during that time there were lots and lots of different chemical processes going on. The steam and the water reacted with some of the chemicals in the shale to create a sort of weak solution of sulfuric acid, which reacted with the aluminium salts in the shale. And that is what alum is. It's an aluminium salt, a double salt. Eventually, after up to a year, it could be about 9 months, the shale had completely changed colour from grey to this beautiful pink colour. And at that point, they'd open up the clamps, they'd take out all this burned shale, and they would steep it in steeping pits. They'd run water through it. And this was to extract the now soluble aluminium salts. They weren't soluble in the original alum shale, but now they'd been rendered soluble by this huge burning process. And they'd keep washing it and keep washing it and keep washing it to get as much of that aluminium salt as they could out of the burned shale. And they bring it down. This is called the mother liquor. It's the concentrated solution. Bring it down a trough, a stone-like trough, to the top of the alum works here, where it was stored, and then this began this incredible process of settling to let all the impurities settle out. Then they would evaporate it to drive off more impurities. They'd add really weird ingredients because it was a double salt, so they needed to add another sulfate to it. So they used to add, originally they would use stale urine. So it must have been a very unpleasant and quite smelly place around here. Later they changed it to burnt kelp. It was like a potash or potassium murate, I think they used to call it, and they used to add that instead of the urine because it yielded a bit better of a yield, I think. And again they'd concentrate it, get rid of impurities, and then they'd get the solution to just the right concentration. What they used to do is put a fresh hen's egg in the solution, and when it floated they knew that the concentration of the aluminium salt in the solution was just at the right level to crystallise out. And they ground it down to produce the final product, which was this, the alum crystal. So you go from the very grey rock to this pure white alum crystal. And this was the stuff that they wanted. This was the stuff that would fix the dyes. It would help to keep the leather supple. It would work in the paper industry to sort of make the paper better quality. So this was their white gold basically. This is where they made their fortune. They actually cut holes and sort of rock harbours, basically very crude rock harbours, into the foreshore, so that boats could basically beach themselves at high tide, and they could unload all the raw materials. They needed a lot of coal, thousands and thousands of tonnes of coal to actually drive the furnaces to evaporate the solution, and also the stale urine and later kelp or seaweed they used to add to the solution, and then to take out the valuable product as well. So. And it was a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week process. So the alum house manager, he had to live pretty close by. The house that he lived in is now a holiday cottage that you can rent from the National Trust. And the workers themselves lived on site as well. And it must have been a pretty unpleasant place to live because obviously the fumes Apparently from contemporary records of people who visited alum works on this coastline, the vegetation was covered in a horrible crust of various sulphurous kind of materials and things. So, and also, I mean, they actually ran the risk of pirates attacking the alum house as well. There was a cannon which is up now in the coastal centre at Ravenscar on display there, and that was found on site by the farmer who was the last person to own this land and farm it before the National Trust acquired it.